But first, we want to get to Congresswoman Karen Bass to talk about the federal vaccine requirements and a whole lot more. Of course, she represents Culver City, Inglewood, West L.A. She's negotiating that big George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. We'll talk about that in a moment. But, Congresswoman, good to see you. Let's talk about where we are at on COVID and what you make of what the federal government is doing. Does more need to be done?
Well, I absolutely think more needs to be done. I do think that it was absolutely right for the president to say either get a vaccine or get tested. But what I think is that we're slowly moving to mandating vaccines. For example, the idea that there's a big percentage of people in the military who don't want to get vaccinated. And what I think is that in a minute, we're going to be moving to mandates in some areas. You know, some private companies are already moving to mandates.
I want to get your reaction to something that the president said today that struck me. He said that on a daily basis, he receives phone calls from foreign leaders asking for vaccine because their people want it desperately. In the meantime, here we are in America. It's free, it's readily available, and now it's taking all of this money that you could put to other issues within this country. It's taking that incentive, and you'd think that the avoidance of death would be incentive enough.
Well, you know what? I mean, I think that it's really sad, and you're hearing all of the hospitals say that almost 100% of the people that are hospitalized right now in ICU and dying are people who are not vaccinated. And you probably have seen some of the interviews of people in the hospital expressing how regretful they are that they did not get vaccinated. But you know what? That's because of the way the way the virus was handled last year, the way it got politicized, the way Dr. Fauci has been attacked, masking has been attacked. It's just really sad. I think that we could have been so much further in conquering this virus if we had not gone through the experience of last year. And more variants are going to continue to kick up until the entire world is vaccinated.
So just to drill down on something you said about mandates, do you believe that the military should have a vaccine mandate? Do you believe that the House of Representatives should have a vaccine mandate? Now they're bringing back the mask mandate, but do you think there should be a vaccine mandate to work on Capitol Hill?
Well, I will tell you that I do think within the military that it should be mandated. And it's sad to say that it would need to be mandated in the House of Representatives, you know, because the problem is that you see the picture of the House chamber right there. Well, the virus spreads around, and 100% of the Democrats have been vaccinated in the House. 25% of the Republicans haven't, because 25% of the Republicans have had COVID. 2 of them have died. And so they believe because they've had COVID, they don't need to be vaccinated. And I think that that's just really bad information. And it's sad to say, but the members of Congress need to be educated more. And there are a number of members of Congress that are doctors. I do believe they are vaccinated, and I wish they would talk to their Republican colleagues.
Yeah, the president saying today this isn't about red states or blue states. This is a matter of life and death. So let's not politicize this any longer. Given what Alex just said about the mask mandate being imposed on the House floor, there are plenty of Republicans who are just refusing it. So how is that?
Well, I mean, it's very difficult. And so we need to go back to wearing masks. We wouldn't have to wear masks if everybody was vaccinated. And so, you know, it's problematic to see my colleagues actually stage a protest. I mean, it gets to be like high school sometimes, you know, it's a little embarrassing. So they're going to go into the center of the floor and not have their mask on as a protest. I mean, it's just, it's actually pretty pathetic.
So
and look at who it is, too.
Unfortunately, we are seeing COVID numbers on the rise. We're also seeing crime numbers on the rise. We've seen these horrible images of people going into stores and this feeling with some that there are not enough consequences for these thieves. When you see these images, what do you think is going on, and how do we fix this?
Well, I think those images are absolutely awful. To see people steal like that, to know that crime is ticking up. But here's what I'm really concerned about. I mean, after 30 straight years of really harsh sentencing, mass incarceration, and we're just beginning to institute reforms, I don't want to see the progress snap back. And I do think that we need to evaluate some of the reforms. So, for example, we release people from prison, but you know, the big thing that I've been working on and working on specific legislation, we need to figure out how to reintegrate people back into communities, allow them to work, because once you have been incarcerated and have a felony, it's very difficult to get employed. And so I think while we're talking about reforms, we need to talk about unintended consequences. We need to be proactive and figure out how to mitigate those problems before reforms, before some of the reforms go forward.
You are the author of the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, which is now being negotiated between you and Cory Booker and Tim Scott in the Senate. We understand that you've come to an agreement on a framework, but we haven't heard a whole lot since then. Where are we at on the bill, and are we looking at an actual deal with real legislative text sometime imminently?
Well, I certainly hope so. But you know very well that I finished my job in the House on March 3rd. It's been in the Senate, and I've been working with my Senate colleagues, and the Senate process is very, very slow. So we adjourn tomorrow for the month of August, but the Senate continues on for a week. I know they are making progress. You know that a lot of attention is paid to just one aspect of the bill, but there's about 20 different pieces of legislation in the bill. And so I know that they are trying to reach agreement on many of those areas. And I'm certainly hopeful that they will be able to complete their work by the time the Senate adjourns next week, which means that they would complete their work. Hopefully they would pass a bill, and then the bill would wait until the House goes back into session.
Is that realistic, that we could see a bill actually done and passed within the next week?
I think that it is possible, but you know, I have thought that before. So I'm a little reluctant to say positive we're going to get it done.
Yeah, you wanted the May 25th deadline. You're passionate about this. You will press on. Congressman Karen Bass, as always, we thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me on.
Great to see you.